Well, a very good evening to you and a warm welcome. This is Business Today. It's the 20th of January. We're coming towards the end of January as well, so we want to see how this year has progressed. We're going to talk a little bit about business and see how the corporate world is holding out and how that is affecting all the other sectors involved. We'd like to talk a little bit about local and global corporate stories, and then we'll have a personality on the show today who will discuss about a selected topic of interest. Of course, we'll talk about the Colombo Stock Exchange to see how the CSE is performing, how it has performed in the past few weeks as well. The leading story for you, however, today on Business Today is that Sri Lanka's pricing index compared to the electricity, that is Sri Lanka's electricity pricing, is to be made more transparent, says the PUCSL, that is the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, says that energy prices will be more transparent in the future. That is, however, the top story for you on this episode. Other local stories for you is that the Sri Lankan stock market closes 0.3% down, and attractive returns on Sri Lankan bonds due to volatility. And the IMF says that the growth in developing countries forecast at 4.3% for 2016. The top international story for you today is that global stocks on brink of bear market as oil slides and the ruble drops. So these are some of the stories we will talk about on the show today. Join us as we start off Business Today. The selected area of interest today, however, is once again energy. Last week we were talking about gas prices and the drop in oil prices internationally. We had the chairman of LAFGAS come in talking to you. Today we have a complementary industry. We want to talk a little bit about the energy prices in terms of electricity on the market. So we're going to talk about electricity readers, meters, as well as tariffs on the show. Let's welcome the guest today. Well, today's guest is Mr. Damitha Kumarasinghe. Very good evening to you.
Very good evening.
He is the Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. He is specializing in electrical engineering. He has been involved actively in developing the regulatory frameworks for Sri Lanka's infrastructure industries during the last decade. His expertise is in the restructuring of infrastructure industries and developing regulatory and legislative frameworks for the infrastructure industries. Prior to joining the PUCSL as the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, he worked in the private sector and also as a consultant to the Ministry of Economic Reforms, Science and Technology. Further, he's a member of the Director Board of Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority and the Management Authority of Sri Lanka. So there we go. So that's what we're going to talk about on the show today. We have a lot of things we want to catch up with. But first, we want to talk a little bit about the PUCSL. That's the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. Mr. Kumarasinghe, why don't you talk to us about the history of it and the role of the PUCSL?
Yeah, Public Utilities Commission was established under Act number 35 of 2002 and started operation early 2004. But until 2009, we did not regulate any industry due to lack of legislative framework specific for those industries. But in 2009, through Sri Lanka Electricity Act, Public Utilities Commission started regulating the electricity industry. But the Public Utilities Commission Act also envisaged regulating petroleum and the water sectors also. We expect these two sectors also come under the regulatory purview of the Commission in time to come, and government has also elaborated in the budget speech stating that these sectors will come under the Public Utilities Commission's regulatory purview in future.
So this is the regulator for the energy sector in Sri Lanka?
Right now it's the electricity sector, but it is supposed to regulate the petroleum as well as water sector in future.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the electricity sector in Sri Lanka. Let's talk about the industry too, just to have an overview of what the industry is about. So somebody who's just joining us at home who has no understanding of the industry, the only thing they know about electricity is that it's expensive in Sri Lanka. But on the show we'll talk a little bit about the myth of that as well. But for now, let's talk a little bit about the industry in Sri Lanka.
In electricity industry in Sri Lanka is basically the supply services, that is delivery of electricity to your doorstep is carried out by two utilities. One is Ceylon Electricity Board and the other is Lanka Electricity Company. And as far as electricity consumer is concerned, anywhere in the world this electricity supply to you is a monopoly. So it is same here. And also we are not a very big system compared to our neighbors like India or Pakistan. So our basic demand is about 2000 megawatts compared to 250,000 megawatts in India. So so that's the range, and we have about 5 million customers in Sri Lanka, and the country has already almost achieved 100% electrification. So that's a big achievement as far as a country, because none of our neighbors in this region have not even come even closer to that. So now our next step is to look into the improvement of quality of electricity.
Right, so that's something I want to touch upon. So as the Director General of the PUCSL, you're saying that Sri Lanka has given electricity to about 95%, 100% of the people. But when you travel out of Colombo, out of the suburbs, you can see that the country is in darkness. So what truth is there? So when you walk around, you can see that it's not, they don't have electricity.
No, I don't accept that statement, because we have already the Ceylon Electricity Board and Lanka Electricity Company, and the government has already provided electricity to more than 95%. So access is there, but there are about 3 to 4% who do not have access to electricity yet, but it's a very small percentage. But government is in the process of providing them also electricity through concessionary financing schemes, which were in news recently also, to make it 100%. So in my opinion, and the fact is that more than 95% is already have electricity in Sri Lanka.
So it's set up, it's accessible, it's a consumer fault. That's why it's not when you travel out, it's in darkness, the lights are not there. It's because of the personal issues.
Yeah, no. The access, we are talking about 95% is the access. So there may be some people who may not have still connected to the grid, but now the government has already provided some concessionary financing schemes for them also to be connected to the grid. Through that scheme, we are expecting it to be 100% in near future.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the supply and demand of the electricity sector in Sri Lanka. So we have about 20 million people in the country, and you said about 200 megawatts. That's the Sri Lankan requirement.
2000 rather plus megawatts for the peak course.
So let's talk a little bit about the supply and demand and where the paths will cross.
Yeah, now currently our system is maximum demand is about 2100 megawatts, and we consume about 12,000 gigawatt hours of energy as a country. And we have about 3,500 megawatts of power plants installed. So as at now, we don't have any issue in supplying the demand, but we had some issues some time back, but now all those issues are sorted out, and CEB is able to supply the demand as at now.
Right, so let's talk about the international scene to draw the picture internationally, then we come back home to Sri Lanka. So the world as a whole is facing an energy crisis. The supply and demand is not meeting. People are expecting more. The supply is not growing at the pace demand is growing. There are lots of baby booms happening. The population growth is unsustainable. Therefore, there's a unavoidable energy situation, energy crisis in the world. Let's talk about this international trend.
Yeah, internationally the energy demand is growing rapidly, especially in this region. If you take India, China or Indonesia, all these countries have very high demand growth. For example, in India they plan to install about 175 gigawatts of power plants within the next 7 years. That's a huge amount of power plants, and China is making more than that. So in Sri Lanka also our demand is growing, so we also need to have some alternatives to supply these demands. So as world as a whole is currently require a lot of energy, because the living standards are going up, industries are coming out, and people are using more and more energy for their day-to-day use. So a challenge for the world in future is to supply this demand. So that challenge is there for us as well, to find ways and means of supply this demand at an affordable price. That is the question. Supplying the demand is not only the question, supplying the demand at an affordable price for people, for the users, is the question we have in hand.
Right, so before we touch on the sustainability aspect of the whole crisis, the whole nature, let's talk about some of the threats that the energy faces. It's not only alien to Sri Lanka, it's only not only used in Sri Lanka, but any country in the world has to face the challenges and threats in any given field. Let's talk about the threats Sri Lanka faces, the main challenges.
No, as I indicated you earlier, our main challenge is to meet the demand in future at an affordable cost, because right now the oil and coal prices are low in the world market, but we are exposed to that volatility in these resources, and also we are in the process of harnessing a lot of renewable energy, and the government policy is also to harness more and more renewable energy. So our main challenge is to have a stable price, stable cost for this commodity in time to come, because that certainty is required for investors as well as the general consumers in order to develop the economy of this country.
Right, so that is your goal. Right now, 2016 January, are you satisfied with the level of pricing you have put on energy per unit?
Yeah, actually there is a myth that there are views that the energy prices in Sri Lanka is very high and so on and so forth, but in my view more than 60% of the people get electricity at a very low price. So about 50% of the people get electricity at about 3 rupees a unit, and the balance another 20% about less than 5 rupees a unit. I think any given world standard, these are low prices, but I accept the fact that about 3 to 4% of the population pays a very high price. That is the price we are comparing with other countries generally. But if you take this country as a whole, majority of the people have access to very cheap electricity at that.
Mr. Kumar Singh, the reason we want to talk about energy crisis in Sri Lanka is because our viewers are writing to us and they have some questions they want clarified. There are lots of myths, especially the public consensus, that they want to clarify regarding energy. For instance, we'd like to start with the meter. So some people think at home that if they have an old meter, that the usage is low, and if they get a new meter, that the prices will be higher. There's some sort of manipulation going on. How would you handle such myths?
No, actually meters are generally tested at the meter laboratories, and the current meters, the today's meters are very accurate, and those meters can maintain the accuracy for 20-25 years. So I don't there's no truth in that a new meter runs fast or an old meter runs slow. But currently the Commission, we are doing a survey with Ceylon Electricity Board and LECO in testing samples of meters which were installed more than 10 years ago. So that sample testing is currently being done, but theoretically there cannot be any issue with the new meter versus old meter, because all meters are supposed to run at the given accuracy.
I think it's the awareness that needs to reach the customers. We'll talk about customer awareness and safety and rights later on. But for now we're talking about educating the customers and the clients regarding the meter, the proper usage of it. Something that really scares the clients or the customers is that they think if the reader hasn't come in 30 days, the electricity reader hasn't come in 30 days, that the bill will be higher. So they're naturally freak and they think that somebody can manipulate it and make it look higher. How would you handle that question?
No, it won't happen, because the tariff structure is designed in such a way that most of the categories, so most of the steps are 30 unit steps. So if you consume, let's say 30 units a month, so you are entitled to the lowest tariff. So that is 1 unit per day is at that tariff. But if the meter reader comes on the 35th day, you have 35 units at that tariff. So there won't be any issue regarding the billing. but sometimes people tend to think that if meter reader comes few days later, then their price would go up or manipulated or something like that, but it won't happen because this is a very clear tariff system.
Right, so those are some of the questions we wanted, that the viewers usually wanted answered. So if you have any questions you want to know the answers to, you can write to us live at Business Today Channel I, and we'll try to get some of your questions answered. So you can go on our Facebook page and type up the questions now, and we'll ask the questions live on Business Today Channel I. Right, so we're talking about customers. Let's talk a little bit about the rights of the customers, because of course you want to give a quality product as well as a quality in services. So what sort of customer rights are there?
Yeah, actually very recently the Commission has introduced consumer rights and obligation statement, and which was there, but we have taken it public very recently, and currently we have sent these copies of these to all Grama Seva Niladharis, all the officers of Ceylon Electricity Board and LECO, and also we have educated the public through Grama Niladharis and other means, electronic media and print media, that these documents are available with these places and the consumers can access that. And there are many rights related to the electricity supply, like getting rights for getting a connection, rights for getting a bill, rights for rights of paying the bill, so on and so forth. There are a lot of rights given to the consumers through 2009 Electricity Act. So all those are elaborated in the Consumer Rights and Obligation Statement, which is accessible to the consumer these days.
Right, so I think like another aspect we want to go into detail is that the electricity consumer quality and services, and we got to know that you have introduced the Supply and Services Code and the Electricity Consumer Rights and Obligation Statement for the industry for consumer protection and to improve the quality of services in Sri Lanka. So alongside that, you have some key projects that you want to implement in 2016. Should we just run through them now?
Yeah, now since we have almost provided electricity to all the consumers in this country, now our next goal as a country is to improve the quality of the electricity as a product, as well as the quality of the service provided by the utilities to the consumers. So we have 12 goals related to the electricity industry now, and out of 12, 7 are related to improvement of quality of product and the quality of service. So for that we have already introduced electricity quality and safety standards, as well as we are in the process of preparing performance standards for utilities, that is the service standards. And also the utilities have come up with Supply Services Code, which elaborate the way they provide the services to consumers. So there are a lot of things happening in order to improve the quality of the product, as well as improve the transparency of providing this service.
Right, so we were talking a little bit about it. So the leading story on today's newspapers is that Sri Lanka's electricity pricing to be made more transparent. It was a statement you issued yesterday, saying that Sri Lanka's energy sector will be introducing a more transparent electricity tariff in the future. Let's run through this whole tariff system now, if you can.
Yeah, now the Public Utilities Commission determined the electricity tariffs, and for that Ceylon Electricity Board and LECO submit their proposals or their cost. Now we are in the process of preparing a regulatory accounting system along with the utilities to ensure the accuracy of data as well as the transparency of data. So it is a 3-year project, where after 3 years we will have a lot of transparent, accurate data in determining the tariff. Also this tariff determination process is very transparent, where we go through public consultations, we open all the data to public. We have done that before, and all the data related to this sector is available on the web, and anybody can go through those and through this mechanism we are very interested in making not only the tariff but the decision making process in the electricity sector very transparent.
Right, so something that may complement this whole tariff system is the TOU, that is the time of use tariff. What is this introduction and what is the need for such an introduction?
Yeah, time of use tariff is actually different tariffs for different time periods. Now our peak time frame is about 7 to 10 in the night, 6:30 to 10. So during that time period we have to use all the expensive power plants. So the price incurred by Ceylon Electricity Board is much higher than off-peak time, which starts around 10 and goes until 6 in the morning. So if you use electricity at a off-peak time, the cost to the utility, cost to the country is lower. So to encourage usage of electricity at off-peak time and move it from the peak time, we have already introduced optional time of use tariff for domestic consumers. Of course, this is for three-phase connections, and now we are thinking of introducing that to the other consumers as well. Now the CEB and LECO is going with a smart metering project. To this smart metering we can introduce TOU tariffs, and the opportunity for consumers on that is that you can shift your requirements, your usage to an off-peak time frame and get a much lower tariff for that. So that opportunity is given to the consumer. Of course, all the loads cannot be shifted, but there are some loads which you can use at off-peak times. So you can use those at off-peak times and reduce your electricity bill. So that's the opportunity coming out of TOU tariff. It is beneficial to the consumer, it is beneficial to the utility, it is beneficial to the country as a whole, because we can reduce the cost of electricity through proper usage of TOU.
Right. So also, as we're talking about the tariffs, we want to talk a little bit about introducing new classifications. We want to talk about transparent licensing systems. Spoke about transparent licenses, transparent tariffs. We want to talk about transparent licenses now.
Yeah, actually, the Commission issues license to all the stakeholders in the all the participants in the industry, transmission, distribution, generation, whatever. So that is issued in a very transparent manner, where we advertise the intention of issuing a license on papers and provide time for any objections to the general public and any other interested party. We provide 20-day period for that. So, and also we have a regulation on licensing. So we have to go through, we are going through that regulation in issuing the license and go through a public window for them to provide their views, and then only we make the decision on licensing. So it's a very transparent process which we
the question I'm coming to now is about electric cars in Sri Lanka. Will it be introduced to Sri Lanka? Who will introduce it, and who will give the connection to it? And importantly, who will charge it? Will it be charged and regulated by the PUCSL or how will the electric cars fit into Sri Lanka?
No, electric cars is a recent introduction to Sri Lanka, and there are a lot of cars running in the streets, you can see. And as I said earlier, this TOU tariff is very useful for people who has electric cars or who intend to buy electric cars, because you can charge the cars during off-peak time. You can plug it during night and you can take it out in the morning and run. So through that we provide them a very good incentive in using electricity cars. And also there are charging stations, I think, are coming up in the country, but it's not widespread right now, but it's picking up. So if we can get electricity users, the car users, to charge them in the off-peak time, actually it is very beneficial for the user, because you get a very low price, and also the utility and the country.
So electric cars, does it come under your purview?
Not really. Electric cars is not a regulated industry. It's car industry basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question I want to talk to you about is regional comparisons and how sustainable Sri Lanka will be in terms of the electricity sector.
Actually, Sri Lanka electricity sector is currently very stable. We have more capacity than the requirement right now, and also we have lined up a few big power plants for the next 5 to 10 years time frame. So we don't see much issue in sustaining the demand or supplying the demand. But our challenge right now is to have a stable cost for this supply. That's where we are looking at solutions to provide a stable cost, stable priced power supply.
Right. Okay. So there's something else I want to touch upon once again is the safety aspect again. So you're a safety regulator. Let's talk a little bit about the objectives and the goals you have from that aspect.
Yeah, actually from 2008 until 2012 we have seen a trend of increasing trend in electrocutions. From 130 to 180 of electrocutions per annum were there in 2012, but we have done a very intensive awareness campaign. We have managed to bring it down to about 75 by now per annum. But our target is to reduce it less than 20 by 2020. Now generally in developed countries, that is the safest countries, they have this what they say is that one electrocution per million per people per annum. So we have about 21 million, so we have to bring it down less than 21 to come in par with the safest countries. So our next target is to bring it down to that level. So that would be a great achievement if we can do that.
Also, so I want to talk a little bit about sockets and power plants. There's no national standard when it comes to the power outlets. What can you do about that?
No, actually we have already done a public consultation on moving into a single standard socket outlet, because almost all the developed countries as well as many developing countries have already migrated into a single standard socket outlets and plugs. But we have, if you look at one of our houses, there are many types of socket outlets, many types of plug points, many types of equipment with many types of sub-plug points, and we use lot of extension wires, lot of converters, and this is very, very dangerous and not up to the standard of supply. So we are now in the process of introducing a single standard for socket outlet. So we have done a public consultation on this aspect, as well as very specific stakeholder consultation, where we had consultations with the manufacturers and the importers and experts and various other parties. Now next step is to introduce this standard. So we are still in the process of this consultation, but at the end of it we have to decide where to go.
Right. So, for in conversation, Mr. Damitha Kumarasinghe is the Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. So, we did talk a little bit about the challenges the Sri Lankan energy sector has to face. You said the cost of production is quite high, and you need to sort of look at bringing it down in the future. The second point you said that is that you all are focusing on improving the quality and services of this particular industry. So, those are the challenges and the threats we have to look out for in the future. What about the opportunities that Sri Lanka has?
Sri Lanka has a lot of opportunities. One is if you look at the consumer angle, first I will come in that line. If you look at from the consumer angle, now we have access, almost everybody has access to electricity. So you have the opportunity to use the available electricity to the consumer for economic development and development of the industries. And also, if you look at from the investor perspective, in future our demands are going to rise. So there are a lot of opportunities in investing in this sector as well. And also from the angle of consumer also has the opportunities to invest on energy conservation or efficient use of energy and reduce their electricity prices in future.
Right. My final question to you is very simple. It is once again coming back to the sustainability issue. So how can Sri Lanka be ready for climate change and the conservation of energy?
Yeah, actually the government policy is very clear that conservation of energy is a priority, as well as introduction of sustainable renewable energy is also on the cards. So Sri Lanka is a country where we have a lot of natural resources, the sun, the wind, the water we have. So, and being a small system, we have some technical issues in absorbing these resources fully, but we have the opportunity here to develop these sustainable energy sources in future, and through which we can come into the point which I raised earlier, to a sustainably priced energy supply. Which we use natural resources, we can ensure sustainable energy supply and sustainably priced energy supply. That's where the future is.
That's where we're heading as well. So thank you very much for giving us a very analytical insight into the energy sector of Sri Lanka. This is Mr. Damitha Kumar Singha, the Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the show today. With that, we take a quick break on Business Today. When we come back, we have local and global corporate stories. Welcome back. This is Business Today. Well, we bring you business personalities. We give you stock market updates, local and global business stories. So we just completed our analysis of the Sri Lankan energy sector, and we discussed in detail what this transparent licensing and what this transparent tariff system is and how it will impact Sri Lankan consumers. And the good story for you is that the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka is regulating the market and is ready to bring down prices and to fight for consumer rights, and they want to uplift the quality and products offered by the electricity sector of Sri Lanka. Right, with that, we'd like to take a look at the stock market update for you today. We'll start off with the All Share Price Index update for you today. Well, the shares fall for the third consecutive session on rising yields, reported to you from Financial Sector today. The Sri Lankan stocks closed down 0.35% for a fourth consecutive session with losses in index heavy stocks, says brokers. The Colombo All Share Price Index closed lower 22.06% at rather it was lower 22.06 points at 6,261.18, down by 0.35%. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 index closed 9.91 points, down 3,251.37, which is down by 0.3%. The turnover was 607 million rupees, with 53 stocks closing positive against 92 negative. The main index made losses in John Kills Holdings, with the stock closing at 156 rupees and 30 cents, which was down by 3 rupees and 60 cents. The Bukit Dara closed at 381 rupees and 20 cents, which was down by 20 rupees and 50 cents. In banking, Commercial Bank closed at 125 rupees and 50 cents, which was again down by 2 rupees and 50 cents. And the main stock index had early losses and closed at 0.6% or 41.37 points weaker at 6,283.24, its lowest close since June 27, 2014. And the stock market has shed about 8.9% this year, though yesterday's close due to foreign inflows triggered by global concerns over the meltdown in China. So there we go. That is the stock market update for you from both the ASPI and the SL and SL20 indexes. With that, we'd like to move on to see what's happening with the Sri Lankan corporate story in detail now. So dealing with business news, we start off with the IMF to see what their latest forecast is. Well, the growth in developing markets are forecast at 4.3% for 2016, says the IMF. Growth in emerging markets are projected to increase from 4% in 2015 to 4.3% and 4.7% in 2016 and 17 respectively, says the latest International Monetary Fund global forecast. Growth in China is expected to slow to 6.3% in 2016 and 6% in 2017, primarily reflecting weaker investment growth as the economy continues to rebalance, says the IMF. India and the rest of the emerging Asia are generally projected to continue growing at a robust pace, although with some countries facing strong headwinds from China's economy rebalancing and global manufacturing weaknesses. Higher growth is projected for the Middle East, but lower oil prices and in some cases geopolitical tension and domestic strife continue to weigh on the Middle Eastern outlook. Global growth, however, is projected at 3.7% in 2016 and 3.6% in 2017, which has been revised down by 0.6% for both years on weaker pickup in emerging economies than was forecasted in October 2015. So global growth will be about 3.6% in 2016. And in terms of country composition, the forecast says that the revisions are largely accounted for by Brazil, where the recession caused by political uncertainty in Brazil amid continued fallout from Petrobras investigating is proving to be deeper and more protracted than previously expected. The Middle East, however, where prospects are hurt by lower oil prices, and the United States, where growth momentum is now expected to hold steadily rather than grow further as predicted before. So this is why global growth has been revised. The forecasts have gone down by 0.6% from 3.6% projected to 3.4% growth in 2016. Prospects for global trade growth have also been marked down by 0.5% for 2016, reflecting developments in China as well as distressed economies such as Brazil and India. And in other stories here at home, attractive returns on Sri Lankan bonds due to volatility. While a lot of the emerging markets, Sri Lanka bond offers a well above average return, though trading opportunities due to strong volatility, a market participant said. Data shows rupee treasury bonds posting more than 25 turning points last year, a clear sign of volatility in the secondary market. Swings of between 25 to 100 basis points during such turn is possible. In October 2015, the 10-year bond offered yields of just 10.25%, which dropped to 9.5% within 2 weeks. This is a 4.6% capital gain and an annualized return of 169%. This month, the 10-year yields fell to 10.35% from 11% within a week. This is a return of about 3.5%. When annualized, works out to be about a 152% gain. So attractive returns on Sri Lankan bond market reported to you in detail. Just to run through it, Indonesian 10-year bond yield is about 8.5% and Pakistan bond yield is about 9.1%. The US 10-year treasuries in comparison offer 2.04%. Japanese counterparts offer 0.2%, China 2.7%. Sri Lanka has never defaulted on sovereign debt, and with several foreign and local banks operating in the island, the market is well regulated, and Sri Lanka raised $1.5 billion in sovereign bond in October 2015, an issue oversubscribed 2.2 times, priced at 6.85%. So that's where we stand internationally in terms of the bond market, the secondary market. Well, it was a capital outflow that triggered a balance of payments deficit last year. We expect a flow of capital back to the emerging markets this year, is reported to you from the secondary market of Sri Lanka. Moving overseas once again, the probability of US March rate hike drops and eyes on Davos. The probability of a rate hike in the US Fed by March fell to 40%, with equity markets off to a bad start this year as focus turns to the World Economic Forum in Davos. JP Morgan expects the next US interest rate hike in June and not in March as predicted, and some analysts predict in just 2 interest rate hikes by the US Fed this year. The European Central Bank could cut its deposit rates, while Bank of Canada may also ease monetary policy this week. According to the CME Fed Funds Futures, the probability of a US rate hike in March is 40%, with an increases up to 58% by June. Brent crude oil was $28.72 per barrel on Wednesday, with China shares down 0.79% and the Hong Kong market down 2.8% after US stocks went down overnight, with the S&P 500 down 8% in just 2 weeks and the Nasdaq falling 10% during this time. Analysts said that the Fed will keep an eye on the dollar, which could strengthen more as China's currency continues to lose value. Attention at the World Economic Forum turns to the state of the global economy after China this week and is said to grow about 6.9% in 2015 compared with 7.3% a year earlier, and this is the slowest growth recorded in 28 years. We'd like to move on to the Sri Lankan stock market as we did before, so we'd like to move on to the energy crisis. The Sri Lanka's electricity pricing to be made more transparent, says the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, with the introduction of the regulatory accounting system as well as aborting more on the emission of data for tariffs. We're going to make the electricity tariffs more transparent in the future, says the Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, Mr. Damitha Kumar Singha. He says the 2016 activity plan has also been launched in connection with the pricing structure. And in overseas stories, the global stocks on brink of bear market as oil slides and the ruble drops, while turmoil returned to global markets as oil prices went down and European stocks sank to the lowest in 13 months, feeling a rush into heaven assets. Earnings exacerbated the rout, sending the MSCI Incorporation's gorge of global equities to the brink of a bear market. The Russian ruble and the Mexico's peso fell to records, while bets mounted on to an end to Hong Kong's dollar peg. Yields on the 10-year treasuries dropped to 2%, and then the yen jumped to a 1-year high. In terms of emerging markets, the MSCI Emerging Markets Index dropped the most in 2 weeks, sinking 2.9% to the lowest on closing since May 2009. Our next story for you is once again dealing with the TRC, that's the Telecom Regulatory Commission, as they introduce a new common flow rate from the 1st of February in Sri Lanka. The Telecom Regulatory Commission, TRC, has introduced a new common flow rate for the Sri Lankan telecom industry, and it will be effective from the 1st of February 2016. The idea is to set a new minimum rate, creating a level playing field for oil operators, and it will enable small-time operators with a low market rate also to be competitive, says the TRC official to the media recently. And under the circular issued by the TRC, short messages, that is SMSs, will be increased from the current 10 cents to 20 cents. In addition, call charges within the same network between two subscribers will be increased by 50 cents. So it will be 1.51 rupee and 50 cents. This will be for postpaid users on per minute billing. In the prepaid segment, a call made to a different operator will be reduced from the current 2 rupees and 50 cents to 1 rupee and 80 cents. As for the prepaid users with the network, the tariff will be increased from 1 rupee and 50 cents to 1 rupee and 80 cents. So this is that the Telecom Regulatory Commission is to introduce the new common flow rates from the 1st of February in Sri Lanka. And with that news, it's time for us to wrap up this edition of Business Today. Thank you very much for being part of today's show. We hope you have a pleasant week ahead. See you next Wednesday. Good night. Take care.